Hi everyone, it is Wednesday and I am sitting here feeling really yucky and I'm just not sure what I'm going to be like tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to need to stay home or if I will be able to make it in. And even if I do make it in, I just am not sure I'm going to be able to do a whole lot of teaching. So I thought this would be a way for me to kind of get out the information to you that I need to, regardless of whether I'm in school or not tomorrow. We have a busy day, especially for first and second hour and fifth and sixth hour. Third hour, you guys are a little bit more on track. But I need to give you a lot of work time today, which is great because you'll be able to do that without me there. But I also have a few things I need to make sure you understand before I release you to do work time. So on our agenda today, I have that you are working on objective summaries, textual evidence, and doing a formative. We're probably not going to make it through the formative. If I'm not here today, we're for sure not doing the formative. If I am here today, we may do it, and I'll talk about that later. I also didn't give you a lot of time yesterday to talk through how the setting affects the characters and to fill out the signpost parts of your green packet. The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, so you'll have plenty of time to do all of that today. I just want to briefly go through a couple things with you. When you are on pages 1 through 3 of your green packet, I want you to not take this chart too seriously. With that being said, you know who you are. Some of you really need to do a nice job on it. Some of you are my overachievers and you would fill out every little possible detail. If that's you, I want you to relax a little bit. You can back up, pan out, and don't worry so much. I don't need you to worry about paragraph. I want you to write down the page number, a few words, okay, not entire sentences, and then try to answer the question. What is the character, why is the character doing that, or how might this change things, or whatever it may be. And obviously you've already read the story, but I want you to think about, what do you think the author wants us to think about, okay? And that should be what drives you forward. So those are pages 1 through 3, and you can work together on this. And then that brings us to the next couple pages, pages 4 and 5, I think they are, and that's all about the setting. And so yesterday we talked about trolls and we talked about The Walking Dead and how we're supposed to pay attention to how the setting coincides or works together with the characters and their moods and the tone and the overall feel of the story. So as you're thinking about The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, I want you to think about the place, the location where the story takes place. A very, very suburban neighborhood. Maple Street is the name of their street, which is a very normal, everyday type of picture-perfect, Leave It to Beaver street name. Okay, thinking about the time of day, the time of year, the flowers are blooming and the trees all have leaves on them and the weather is nice, the ice cream man is out, the top is down on that car, and then it's daytime in the beginning and then it moves to nighttime later, and that's on purpose as well, right? So you're thinking about the atmosphere that all of this creates, and you can use that information to help you with pages 4 and 5. And then what I really wanted to get to today is talking to you a little bit about summary. What is a summary? And if you turn to pages 6 and 7 in your packet, where's my packet? There's some good information for you about an objective summary for fiction. We're calling it objective because I want you to practice the idea of not thinking about your own opinions, how you feel about this story, how you feel about the characters. I want you to kind of empty your brain of your own thoughts and instead focus more on what's really there in the story, okay? So an objective summary is basically a brief retelling. Summary is a brief retelling. You're making something shorter, which is why there's a picture of that girl with the beautiful hair chopping her hair, right? And this curriculum has a great strategy for how to summarize. There's 4 different steps. It's about naming it, verbing it, mentioning, and including. And so what that means is that to start the summarizing process, you first name what you're summarizing. So you mentioned the title and the author. The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street by Rod Serling, right? And then you verb it. You use a verb like tells about, shows, reads, some sort of word that includes an action, all right? You can't say talks about because the story isn't talking, so don't use that one, although I guess that's similar to telling. But anyway, something with a verb, so you verb it. And then you need to mention kind of the big ticket items, like the name of maybe the main characters, the setting, and the conflict. And then from there, as the summary continues, you'll include information about the climax and the resolution. All right? All of this should be written in your own words, and it really shouldn't be more than 5 or 6 sentences. You want to try to keep it in present tense and omit any little minor details that really aren't that critical. You should not include your own interpretation. Okay? You can't include your own feelings. You can't include your own opinions, and you should not include minor details. Here's an example. At the beginning of the year, we read Rikki Tikki Tavi. So here's an example, and it's color-coded. So the name it is in green, verb it red, mention purple, and include blue. Okay. The story Rikki Tikki Tavi by Rudyard Kipling tells the story of a mongoose named Rikki Tikki Tavi and his fight with 2 cobras, Nag and Naganya, in a bungalow and nearby garden in India. So look at all the 5 W's that were included there. The name of the characters, what happened, the conflict, right? Where they were in a bungalow and nearby garden in India. And then it goes on to tell more about the climax and resolution. Rikki is exploring the garden near the family's home he lives in when he meets Nag and Naganya. In order to save the humans that he lives with, Rikki fights and kills Nag in the bungalow bathroom. After Rikki destroys all of Naganya's eggs, there is a fierce standoff as Naganya threatens to kill the boy with whom Rikki lives. Finally, Rikki chases Naganya into a hole and emerges as the hero, having killed the last cobra and bringing peace to the garden. 7th graders, you do not need to worry about spoiler alerts. You can spoil the ending because you are writing a summary that we are expecting someone to read who has already read the story. Okay, so don't worry about that because I know that's normally a thing we ask you not to do. So this process of doing the objective summary should be pretty straightforward for you. If you have questions about that, you can go look in your notes and work with a friend. And there's a spot on the next page for you to write down your summary of The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. Okay, that brings us to our last mini lesson here. And the last mini lesson today is on page 8. And it's about the strategy called RACE. All right, lots of acronyms today. What does it mean to RACE? RACE is a reading strategy that can help you to answer questions. Okay, sometimes you guys struggle to answer questions because you only answer part of the question and there's 2 parts to it or 3 parts to it. Or sometimes you leave out big details that are really important and should be mentioned as you're responding to a question. So there are 4 steps. The first step is to restate the question. That's the R. The second step is to answer all parts of the question. That's the A. The C is for cite text evidence. And the E is for explain how your evidence proves the answer is correct. Okay. There's a video here. I'm going to plop this onto Google Classroom, so if you want to watch the video, you can. So here are the steps to do this RACE business that I want you to practice today. All right. And the sample question that you're going to look at is this. It says the climax of a story is the story's most interesting moment. It is the turning point of the story and a point in which the conflict, will soon be resolved. Okay. What do you consider to be the climax of The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street? Cite evidence that indicates that this is the climax. So there's 2 parts to this question. We'll talk about that, I guess, on the next slide. But looking at the example and just doing step 1, which is restating the question, you would start your answer with the climax of The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street is when. Notice how we basically took the first half of the question and rephrased it into a statement, starting with the topic, the climax of The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. And then we leave it at that. That's just doing the restate the question, the beginning half of the question, okay? Step 2 means that you make sure that you answer all parts of the question. So we go back. What are the 2 parts of the question? First, you have to make sure that you share what you think is the climax, and then 2, you need to make sure that you cite evidence. All right. So we have here the R, the restate. The climax of The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street is when, and now you can see the 2 parts. Pete Van Horn is shot by Charlie. The excitement of this event is evident with Woman One's line, blank, blank, blah, blah, blah. This shows you how we're leading into citing the evidence, okay? We're making sure we get both parts of that question. Step 3, the C is for citing evidence from the text. So we're going to go back and do that now too. So we again have our R. The climax of The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street is when, right? That's the R. Pete Van Horn is shot by Charlie. This excitement of this event is evident with the one woman's line. And then we put in the evidence. You killed him, Charlie. You shot him dead. And then we expand on that a little bit, which isn't really part of race, but I think is important to take note of. After this occurs, the neighbors become suspicious of Charlie and they all turn on one another. This is evident toward the end of the play with the following lines. And then you see more evidence. Don's line, Woman One's line, Mrs. Goodman's line, and so on and so on. All right. So step 3 then is done. And then if you flip to page 8, or maybe you're already there, I can't remember if I already said that or not, but on page 8 of your packet you have this right here. So what you should do is pause the video right now and fill in this information on your packet. I know it's going to take you a minute or 2, but it'll be worth it, I promise. Do it right now. Okay, step 4 then is the last thing, and that's the explanation, where you explain your answer. So you can see here from the sample, if we read the entire thing now, we've really explained our thinking. Look at you guys, this is all one answer to a question. Now, we don't always expect you to do this, and I know that it seems very rigid, following R-A-C-E every time you answer a question. It doesn't stay that rigid. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes for you, and it ends up just being like the regular progression of communicating that you use, and that's what we want for you. We want you to learn different strategies to communicate and to communicate well with others, whether it's written or spoken, and that sort of thing. So the whole paragraph says, the climax of The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street is when Pete Van Horn is shot by Charlie. The excitement of this event is evident with the Woman One's line, you killed him, Charlie, you shot him dead. After this occurs, the neighbors become suspicious of Charlie and they all turn on one another. This is evident toward the end of the play with the following lines. Don, Charlie has to be the one. Where's my rifle? Woman 1 says, Les Goodman's the one. His car started. Let's wreck it. And Mrs. Goodman says, well, what about Steve's radio? He's the one that called them. These lines, now the explanation, these lines from the play show the hysteria that occurs in the following action of the play. In the resolution that shortly follows, we see that true aliens really were to blame for the power outages, but the people of Maple Street became their own worst enemies. Pete Van Horn's death is the climax because it is the most exciting part of the plot, because it is the turning point, and because after his death, the following action occurs, and then the resolution. All right? So, a couple tips. Number 1, read through the question 2 times. That's really important to do. Number 2, underline all the things the question is asking you to do. Number 3, when you begin your answer, reword the question. Number 4, as you write your answer, make sure you answer every part of the question. Number 5, support your answer with words, evidence from the text. And number 6, explain your answer. I'm going to run out of time here, so you should have this up on the screen, or your teacher, whoever's here with you today, should have it. Good luck, and I'll see you tomorrow, I hope.